Hi there, everyone. This is Tharaka here, and today we have Shamoon on. And so we're going to let you know why we decided to get into this channel and what this channel's about. So I'll hand it over to Shamoon.
Okay, name is Shamoon Khan. As I think we've already said that Taraka, you are a non-religious spiritual person, right? So you're not
Correct.
necessarily following a formal religion. I do, on the other hand. You and I met, I think, about 2 years ago,
Yes.
um, at a jujitsu gym, right?
Yeah,
So, and that was our first and only meeting ever, correct?
that is correct. Yes, I believe
Yeah.
the jiu-jitsu happened on Wednesday nights, and I would come by sometimes, also get some training in. And after training, then we would have some talks about various things. And you told me about the YouTube channel that you had, and we had some interesting talks about religion and its kind of place in the modern world. So that's how we
Yeah.
got to know each other. Yeah.
And yeah, so basically, in my attempts to resume my YouTube channel, which I was doing, and then I put a pause on it for various reasons. I think I did touch on it in my previous video. But anyways, this is an attempt to revive, and I think that this kind of meeting is what I actually wanted to do in the original plan of and the original purpose of my specific YouTube channel was to have discussions and dialogues such as this.
Hmm.
So people from different walks of life, irrespective of whatever you believe, we just get together and we discuss, issues. And so
Hmm.
that was the primary aim and goal of my YouTube channel. So yeah, I'm actually very excited about having this conversation because on my YouTube channel, this is the first of its kind. So the
Wow, very
previous ones that
exciting.
I've done is very it's just very inter-Christian, discussions and topics. Never really got to engage with somebody outside the Christian religion.
Okay, so this is very
So yeah,
exciting.
that's what
Yeah,
we're gonna do.
just before we start, I'm gonna let everyone know that, of course, my views are my own, and I'm not trying to impose them on anyone. My views have mostly been, culminated through my life experiences and through the people I've met. So I just try to express what I've learned through my life, and I don't expect you guys to agree with everything I say. But all I ask is that you respect where I'm coming from and you also respect Shamoon and that we can have these amazing conversations and you guys can be the judge and also add what you think from your perspective. Okay, thank you very much. And so if you want to introduce the first topic, we can get
Yeah,
right into it.
I too.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to second what you're saying. One of the biggest challenges I think that I have personally faced is is from both sides, not just the opposite end, not just the non-religious, but also the from within the Christian community. Well, not only the Christian community, I would say that both ends in the sense that people from formal religions and
Hmm.
people from outside formal religion.
Hmm.
I have just experienced a struggle to just have conversations and just be
Right.
able to be like, okay, that's what you believe, and that's fine, right? It's not the end of the world. But what I've experienced is like people, my goodness, they cannot handle conversations such as these. So I'm
Yeah.
just really hoping that our viewers will take a very mindful approach to conversations such as this.
No, 100%. I think that's why I think it's good to caveat at the beginning because obviously these can be sensitive topics, but like we say, we're just trying to have an open conversation. We're trying to encourage this within the community so that people can have these conversations and obviously talk before we act and before we get polarized. And so, guys, we're just gonna have this conversation, okay? And let's try to be non-judgmental and see how it goes, okay? So, Shamoon, do you want to preface the first topic that we decided we were going to talk about today?
Okay, so the first one was what we're going to talk about is what I think, how I think rather, the Christian community and churches should deal with the LGBTQI community.
Hmm.
Um, and let me add this: I'm not speaking for the entire Christian world, right? What I'm speaking from my perspective, and I'm trying to say that I think that my perspective is a lot more helpful than what I have heard, and the
Right.
way I've actually seen people engage on this specific topic. The reason why I will say is that I appreciate and prefer my specific view, first of all, because it's my view, of course.
Of course.
Number two, number two is because I think that based on my views, I've actually had healthy relationships with the LGBTQI, community. I've been able to have great conversations with them, and to be honest, um, I was actually with one guy this past weekend, and it was awesome. We had an awesome time together. We were chilling and talking, and it was amazing. So I think that, and there was no, he understood where I'm coming from. I understood where he's coming from. And, like what we're trying to also do here on a
Yeah.
general level, there was this general attitude towards each other. Like, after all, we are humans. So,
Hmm.
human beings sharing this planet. And so let's just be that. So, yeah, so I think we've already gotten into it. So,
Hmm.
yeah, you can fire away your questions if you have any.
Right. So, I was going to say that, yes, as mentioned earlier, from my experiences, I have made friends from the LGBTQI community, and I think it comes down to getting to know them and realizing that these are just people, and they're almost wired this way to where they can't change who they are. They have an expression, and they want to express it naturally. And luckily, in today's society, in the modern day society, in some countries, they can express themselves freely. And so they want to just live their lives and share experiences with people and not be judged. And I think when it comes to religion's point of view on this community, there's always a lot of aversion. There's a lot of people that think that these people are, for instance, they're choosing to be this way, or they have malintentions for the community, for the Christian community, for the Muslim community. They're judged and deemed as outsiders. And I think that's unfair because it's not taking their experiences into context. It's not allowing them to express themselves. So I wish more people were like you, where they were a bit more open and they could have conversations with people. They could have friends from this community. They could share experiences and they could realize that these are just people and we're all just trying to live in this world, and be okay with what we believe and what we feel.
Yeah. So, I'm going to create in response. I empathize with what you just said, but
Hmm.
let me point out something. Um, I personally like to create distinctions, right?
Right.
And that is this: if if I believe that what you're doing is wrong, right?
Hmm.
It does not mean that I should struggle to have a relationship with you. Those are two different things, right?
Hmm.
So my that's where I kind of differ with, I think, at least an attitude. I think that the within the Christian community, I've never personally heard somebody say, well, I actually have heard one or two people say hate the gays, right?
Hmm.
I don't. Yes, I have.
Well,
I
that's
don't
great.
personally take that approach. My approach is, I must be honest, that I
Hmm.
do feel like that they are in the wrong in terms of, because I come from a religious perspective.
Hmm.
My religion teaches me that that act of
Hmm.
homosexuality is one, it is sin against God. Number
Hmm.
two, it is an attempt to break down society, and we can talk about that as well.
Hmm.
However, irrespective of all of these things, right?
Hmm.
They are human beings, and they are also, once again, the same religion that looks at these people and say that the act that they're involved in is an
Hmm.
unhelpful thing. They shouldn't be doing that. It
Hmm.
also then, in the same breath, says that these people are made in the image of God.
Right.
They are image bearers of God.
Mm-hmm.
So they deserve respect. They deserve a place in society. They deserve a place in community.
Mm-hmm.
In like little factions of community, they are functional.
Mm-hmm.
They are a part of us. They share this world, and we
Right.
need to deal with them in that same manner. So we can be friends with them. I can have them over for dinner. I can do all sorts of things with them. Um, what I do with any other normal human beings, because essentially they are normal people.
Right.
There's
Right.
nothing. I think that the religious world kind of almost has, put the stigma around them that they're somehow abnormal in a way, right? So
Yes.
the
Yes.
moment you see a homosexual walk past, you're like, look at that dude. What's wrong with him?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the first thing. That's like almost like we're conditioned to be like, what's wrong with this guy, right? It's
Yeah.
not like, oh, look at him, or what's his name, or let's go hang out with him. It's almost like, oh, it's
Yeah, no, I
so.
get that. I
Do
get
you
that. But
want to say
Shimon, you
something?
said something very important. You said like
Yeah,
ultimately the act of what they're doing is wrong. So you can still be
yeah,
friends with them, but you do see that as a wrong thing. But this is where I would like to just give some pushback, which is like
sure, sure.
if it's two consenting adults, right? And then they just choose to
Yeah,
express their love, especially in today's society, like this is the thing with religion. I always feel like the text was written so many years ago when society was different, and it was ultimately made for a different time, and they had certain rules in it because of the way society needed to be governed back then. But in a really like modern world, if two consenting adults want to express their love and whether they be homosexual, I think that's completely fine. I don't see anything wrong with the act. The only thing that I do have a problem with the community is when people try to almost normalize pedophilia. That's something that I feel is very wrong because I feel like children are innocent, and if you sexualize a child, it actually leads to like psychotic breaks in that child, and they develop psychotic conditions very early on. They develop mental illnesses. So that's where the line is drawn. And I'm like, I don't want anything to do with that. I feel like that is extremely wrong. But when it comes to two consenting adults, I ultimately feel that if they choose to live their life without harming anyone and they just have a civil relationship, they have a romantic relationship, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with it. So in today's society. So can you just like elaborate on maybe what the problem is within the community, the religious community, and how that affects them with two people of
okay,
the same sex being together?
okay. So my response to that would be this. So depending on what your presuppositions are about God, right?
Hmm.
Um, because you can believe, and for me, I'm a classicist. So in the theology world, very specific term. I'm not going to go define that because I
Hmm.
think we have limited time and we can get lost in those things. What
Right.
I'll say is this: I believe that there's a God, right?
Hmm.
And there is the God. I believe that since there is God, he is intelligent. And since he is intelligent, he then, any intelligent being in existence, has within himself the purpose to communicate
Hmm.
purpose, value, etc., etc. These things are necessary for anything to display its intelligence, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so God, since he is intelligent, since he is etc., and he exists, he needs to then communicate with us what his expectations, purpose, etc., etc. are. Now, if you follow that line of logic, and now we can talk about whether that line of logic makes sense or not. That's an entirely different conversation. And my goodness, can we talk for
Yeah.
hours on end on that? But since that I follow that line of logic, um, then I come to see where can I find this communication, where I can find God's purposes, where
Hmm.
I can, know what he thinks and what he requires of me, what was the intelligence behind my life, etc., etc.
Hmm.
And then I kind of land at the Bible. So that's where then it would go back to, what you said is that it was written for a group of people back in the day. I
Right.
would say that no, my position is that it is written for people right across the board, right?
Right. Okay.
From eternity past to, the end of days kind of thing.
Hmm.
So it would be applicable. And there's nothing, then I would even add that there's nothing in the Bible that does not, more especially the New Testament in that sense, right? The
Hmm.
new covenant Christians and stuff, there's nothing within the scriptures that is applicable today to Christians that is not compatible with society. Because then I even spoke about the breakdown of society. Now, it's wrong because God says it's wrong. So if like scripture says that it's wrong, it
Hmm.
wasn't written for people back in the days, it's written for everyone. And if it is written for everyone, then the Bible's saying that homosexuality is wrong,
Hmm.
therefore it's just wrong. Because you see, this thing of the scripture was written for times past, right? You
Right.
said that, right?
Yeah.
So let's just imagine that it was written for times past. In
Hmm.
times past, do we not accept the Bible because it was written in time past? And if that's the case,
Hmm.
the Bible also says do not murder. So do we say that, oh, that was something for the past? So if it kind of works out for me, I think I feel like killing, right? Because it was for time past.
Hmm.
So there's not only personally, I have a different take on this as well. Is like what I believe is that God's laws, like certain rules and stuff and
Hmm.
commandments, are intelligible and they are very applicable.
Hmm.
So that's also one of the reasons why I would accept it. For example, the homosexuality thing,
Hmm.
right? And the murder thing, that murder is do not murder,
Hmm.
is a ageless truth. Would you agree?
Yes, it is. Okay, I'm glad that you brought these 2 points that we could distinguish them. Because obviously, okay, so me saying that the Bible is written age past for people and societies in a different time
Yeah,
basically means that at a certain time, people had perfected what it means to be a human being. So, you have different religious texts all around the world. You have the Bhagavad Gita, you have the Bible, and so on and so forth. And so they found out about the spiritual side of man, and they did find out certain instructions for people to follow that would lead them to ultimate success, even in today's time, right? So you bring up the
yeah,
do not murder point. Now, of course, we don't want to murder because it makes society unsafe for people. There would be uh, killings across the board. There would be revenge killings. There would be honor killings, and this would make society very unsafe. And it would also make people feel as if there's no governance, right? But then when it comes to homosexuality,
yeah,
maybe we all are clear why there shouldn't be a do not murder and that being translated from the Bible into law. But can you maybe
sure,
just
yeah,
explain like
yeah.
why, in your opinion, homosexuality is in the Bible, it was written and it translates today, and it should be something that people look for and can uphold? Because from what I think is actually, if you look at homosexuality, right? If you get two consenting adults that are homosexual, first of all, the one thing is they can't have children, okay? In today's overpopulated
Um,
world, you
yeah,
need people that are going to be guardians essentially. And so they can adopt, right? They can do other things
yeah,
where they can benefit society. They also, they pay taxes,
yeah.
they can make civil unions. So I'm trying to see in today's society, why is it still wrong? Because I feel there's a lot of problems that are solved by allowing these people to exist in the way that they can. They're a lot more kinder when they're allowed to be who they are, and they can benefit society by net positive if they're allowed to be who they are today in today's society.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying. Now, so basically what I'm going to say is this. There's two reasons why I would say that homosexual act and behavior is wrong, right?
Hmm.
So one, because the scripture says so, right?
Right.
Now, beyond that, why from the mind of God that specific, commandment comes out? Are
Hmm.
you with me?
Yes.
Okay. I cannot speak to that specifically.
Hmm.
That would be well, inappropriate, and I think reaching beyond my abilities to
Right.
know specifically what and why God specifically says that.
Hmm.
But I know that the scripture does say it. It's not hard to find that in formal religious, books and stuff like that. Now,
Hmm.
the number two, what I would say is that, at least from what I have picked up, it seems like the issue is that homosexuality is a breakdown of society. Let me say why.
Okay.
Um, so when you read the scriptures, right, from the book of Genesis and stuff, one of the things that God requires is go forth and multiply. He says that to Adam and Eve. I'm not sure if you've ever come across
Yes,
Adam
yes.
and
No,
Eve's
I've
story.
actually read the Bible quite extensively. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So when you read the Bible, you're like, okay, God's requirement is go forth and multiply.
Hmm.
Now, to multiply, we all know what that entails, right?
Right. Right.
Homosexuality, if left to kind of go rampant, it
Hmm.
works against that specific productivity of society. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, but Shamoon, this is where I would give
Hello?
some pushback, right? Because what I wanted to give the pushback on is the go forth and multiply. So essentially, we're in a society now where we have a very strained system. There's a lot of people, not enough resources. I mean, if I just come to the UK, there's maybe people having like lots of kids. They're not necessarily taking care of those kids, so they're just having kids because they want welfare and they want benefits. So they have these kids, they're not giving them the time and love that these kids deserve. And this is where I feel like, okay, if people have needs, if they have like this thing in their brain that tells them, okay, I need to ultimately have intercourse to multiply, but I'm homosexual, so it won't lead to any more kids. That might be a good thing, right? Because first of all, we're not straining the system. Then, of course, with all these people that are having kids just for the wrong reasons, now these people from this community can now contribute to taking care of them. So that's just one pushback I want to give you, and then of course you can go ahead and elaborate your point.
Okay, so just a quick response to that.
Hmm.
People having kids irresponsibly is irresponsible,
Hmm.
right? And I must say that that's, if you've read the scripture as what you said, you will notice that there's something called the fall of man in the scripture, right?
Hmm.
Where man was, Adam and Eve come through, right? They come onto the scene.
Hmm.
There's this big situation where there's disobedience, etc. And man, all of a sudden, humankind finds itself being marred with sin, right?
Hmm.
That our natural propensity towards life and ourself is one filled with irresponsibility. It's filled with all manner of harmful behavior, etc., etc. So original original plan is to responsibly go forth and multiply.
Hmm.
Take care of those that you are going to multiply, right? So,
Hmm.
and if you notice that the Old Testament scripture in that, the covenant that God makes with Adam and Eve is that go forth and multiply and be fruitful, right? So
Hmm.
the idea over there is also to be able to take care of that which is being multiplied. Now, in society, if we say that, okay, so there's irresponsible, multiplication and irresponsible reproduction of children coming onto the scene, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Therefore, reproduction is bad altogether. I would say that that is another extreme of a response to why we still do need to multiply, right?
Hmm.
Because if we say that uh, we shouldn't multiply because people have been irresponsible in that, uh, I would say that humankind would cease to exist, right? We
Hmm.
need to multiply, but do it responsibly. And
Yes, of
that's
course.
where so that's where the idea is like the Christian response to everything is that sex is good. It's beautiful. It's
Hmm.
amazing. There's two things that I personally really enjoy in my life. It's food, right?
Hmm.
And sex. It's my relationship with my wife. It
Hmm.
is amazing. It's a gift of God to me. But what's happened is that both the things that I've mentioned, food and sex, it's been corrupted because we have a natural propensity towards irresponsibility, right?
Hmm.
And now
Hmm.
all of a sudden, what you have is people eating themselves to death,
Hmm.
literally, right?
Yeah.
People are eating themselves to the point where they cannot physically sustain the food that they're eating. And all of a sudden, a beautiful thing becomes a horrific thing. Food that is supposed to be for our sustenance, that's supposed to be for our enjoyment to some extent, we're now dying at the hands of that, right? So the response of our irresponsible use of food can't be, oh, let's stop eating food altogether,
Hmm.
right? It should be, let's educate ourselves and be like, okay, we need to use food properly. And I think that the world is now starting to do that a lot more with
Right.
these fitness plans and stuff. And even with this fitness plan, like, look at this, our propensity towards extremes and extreme irresponsibility. Look at this. Now,
Hmm.
since excuse me, so since there is this thing towards a move, a shift towards being healthy and all of those things, now all of a sudden, because of social media and stuff, we think that those fitness models, those Instagram models, are
Yeah.
the only ones that are fit and healthy. And therefore, if I want to be fit and healthy, I need to look like that.
Right. And then
So
that's
you
this is
see,
where
like,
body dysmorphia is coming in and everything.
exactly. So there's this duality of, oh, where do I fit in? Because there's no in between at this stage. There's
Hmm.
no normal, because all of
Right.
a sudden there's just an extreme of, okay, it's either you're obese and super unhealthy, or what I know is that you're just some guy with a big chest, big bouldering shoulders, abs, and all of that, and that's what I need to aim for. So, and I think that that's where this whole thing of homosexuality also kind of fits in, is that the argument would be the same,
Hmm.
is that yes, we have been irresponsible, but that
Hmm.
does not mean that the need for reproduction is stopped, right? And if left, homosexuality has over the years just grown and is growing. And since you nor I know the future and what it looks like,
Hmm.
who's to say that the entire world or the majority of the world doesn't turn gay and they stop reproducing? And at that stage, what do we do? Right? So
Yeah, no.
it's
Yeah.
sorry, go
Okay,
ahead.
so to that point, I would say I think it's growing because more people feel okay to express themselves as being homosexual because it's becoming less how can I say, offensive to society. And when it comes to your point of like reproduction being used for the right causes of obviously building families, building communities, I think that still lies in the fact and in the story that what we have to do as people is to build these communities. Obviously, if you fall in love with someone, you want to have a partnership with them. The next logical step is to move in together. Obviously get married if you feel happy with that person, you're basically making a promise. And then the next part of that is to stop being selfish and start to take care of other lives. And so this is a fundamental truth of what it means to be human. Of course, we're also getting into a stage of life now, or a stage of society where people are feeling they don't want to have kids, maybe less and less. And you're right that that is a problem because it's leading to population collapse. But my main point is that if we allow people to express themselves sexually freely, as long as they're not offending anyone, right? As long as they're not trying to impose their views on you and let's say your kids, and we just live in a free society. For instance, like you said, we're becoming more aware of how we should be eating and we should be healthy, right? Like this is information that's becoming readily available. Of course, we don't want to hear it always from the top 1%, those fitness influencers, but we if we have access to the information, we know what it's right, what is needed to eat right. When it comes to
Yeah.
sexuality and sex education, I feel like if it is out there for the people to consume and then for them to understand what is wrong and what is right when it comes to these, to avoid diseases, to avoid like infections, to know how to treat people with respect when it comes to these things. I think if that education is there, then it's completely fine. You know what I mean? So that's
So I
yeah.
hear you. So two things in response to that is
Hmm.
it's just ironically to what you're saying, homosexual community has the highest rate of HIV and stuff like that, STDs and stuff, according to Pew Research.
Hmm.
Number two is that what did you just say? That something about families. Yes, in
Right.
the ideal world, in an ideal world, we shouldn't force our views. We shouldn't, right?
Hmm.
And in an ideal world, there is no forcing of views. Unfortunately, what happens is that I have met, and as many as I have met, irrespective of what philosophical, political, religious persuasion you are of, you
Hmm.
will find people, parents, whether it's homosexual parents or whatever, they will, because they need to raise a child,
Hmm.
or if they are raising a child. So if they have a child, they need to raise it.
Hmm.
So if they need to raise it, they need to raise it with some form of ideology, right?
Right.
And most than not, they will teach them what they are persuaded of. And that's very normal,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
what you have then is I've actually my wife is actually knows somebody also very dearly that she well is what is she? She's
Right.
non-binary,
Non-binary,
and
right.
she is that because she was taught to be that by her moms.
Hmm.
And so to say that we shouldn't impose, yeah, we shouldn't. Is that happening? Undeniably. You see, so it kind of like once again, it's coming back to the same thing where the homosexual community is not only, oh, let's keep this to ourselves and just chill and be ourselves, right? Let's
Hmm.
just live our lives with everyone else. But that's not happening,
Hmm.
right? If that would happen, it would it my argument would fail, and you'd be like, oh yeah, you know what, they're really just keeping to themselves. They're really just, everyone knows, like, oh, that's a homosexual, but we're chilled, we're all like, we can all sit here and stuff. No, but that doesn't happen. What's
Hmm.
happening is pride is happening, where everyone is on the streets, and they are promoting. It's a national day of promotion of their
Hmm.
movement, right? And
Hmm.
what is promotion? Characteristically, it's basically saying that we are here propagating this
Hmm.
specific ideology, right? So the
Hmm.
moment you do that, you're no longer saying that, oh, I'm not pushing this down your throat. It's literally doing that. It's pushing it down everyone's throat, right? So, and then the kids that are being raised as well. So that's once again doing the same thing. It's multiplying their numbers. So what happens is then you've got an infiltration into society, and so on and so forth, where there is then this constant, now, simultaneous breakdown of society, where um, um, responsible reproduction is hindered, because that child that is grown in that household grows up to think that I am gay, because that's all I know.
Okay, right. So my pushback on that would be, first of all, pride, I see it as like just, yes, of course, it's being obscured, and I will agree with you. In some places, it's being obscured, it's being overly sexualized, it's being used for the wrong reasons. It's like ultimately commercialized in a way that's not healthy. Okay. But I see it as almost like, any Independence Day. So like if it's an Independence Day, it's a day for people to be like, this was when we were ultimately our rights were recognized to express our sexuality. Okay. And that's completely fine. I think that that's fine. I don't like the hypersexualization of it. I think that needs to tone down a bit, of course. And that this is not everywhere. This is just in some places. And when it comes down to being taught or imposing views, I think if we have a good enough system of education where we can express people's rights, right, and what they can choose, their freedom of choice, what it means to be in this community. If you want to teach your kids a certain thing, I believe that that is your right as a parent. School should be a objective place where ideas come to interact, and just like we're having an open conversation now, you can have your view, I can have my view. School should be a forum. There should never be any pushing of agenda in school. Okay, so that's the first thing. So I think, yes, maybe you're right. Maybe in some places because of political pressure, because of pressure from society, people are pushing agendas in all type of schools. So I feel like they should be open forums where people can have these discussions. When it comes down to kids, this is where I think this is very important and this is paramount, is that we need to recognize that kids are essentially growing human beings. And what they need guidance, okay? And they need guidance to be able to pick what they believe is best for them. If they're untouched by bad intentions and you try to raise them the best way, you give them all the material, proper knowledge on democracy, psychology, what it means to be a good person in society. I feel like they will make the choices that are beneficial for everyone ultimately, and their parents are there to guide them. Of course, we don't want anyone imposing their views. All right.
Yeah. So I think we've decided that we're going to close this topic because we do have two other to go on. What I
Right.
would say is that I appreciated the fact that you acknowledged that pride and all of these other things, in the school systems and stuff, these ideologies are being specifically pushed,
Hmm.
and they shouldn't be. You see, unfortunately, what I would say is this: that unfortunately, in an ideal world, it shouldn't, but we don't live in an ideal world. And so
Hmm.
it's not that way. And what we have is, we have drag days at schools where these things are being taught to the children, they are being imposed on the children. Pride is so you said that the Pride Day was supposed to be like like, oh yay, we have rights day, kind of like an
Right.
Independence Day for homosexuals.
Right.
But and it shouldn't be anything more than that, but it is a lot more than that.
Hmm.
So once it becomes a lot more than what it's supposed to be or what it originally was, etc., it definitely does pose a threat to society. Imagine homosexuals now, no, sorry, heterosexuals now all over the world get together and start being like, oh yeah, homosexuals, you guys are this and that, and like we have our own day, and it 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 causes a almost like a disunity. There's a breakage in that in
Hmm.
society almost when a certain attitude is involved in what I'm trying to celebrate, right?
Hmm.
So unfortunately, that is happening. So when that is happening, that's why then my specific issue is that it's a breakdown of society, at least from the reproduction side of things,
Hmm.
that then comes in. You see? So that's where one of my issues is. And as I said to you, but besides all the other things, why it's wrong is because I do believe that God exists. And so if God says something, the question, I think there's a Muslim guy who said it very well. There was a lady who actually said to him, how can you believe in a God that demands death, etc.? And Muhammad Hijab is his name. I really
Hmm.
appreciated his response. And he said, I think that that's the wrong question, right? The question is not supposed to be, how can you follow and believe in a God that demands a kind of violence in whatever context? The question should be, does that God actually exist who demands that? Because what if he does exist? And what if he's the actual true God?
Hmm.
And if that is the case, whatever he says, we as people must oblige, because then what happens is then you have with that same God that says certain things that to our ears might come across as extreme, he also then adds consequences to not following those things, right?
Hmm.
That's also another thing to consider, is that it's not, oh, I can't follow this God because he doesn't sound nice. I
Hmm.
think it's more like, oh, um, I can't follow this God because this God, whether he exists or not, is he true or not, is he real or not? And I think the conversation does need to go in that direction when looking at what's wrong and right, moral systems, etc. But anyways, I think that that's my closing. I
Okay.
don't know if you wanted to say.
Yeah, I'll just quickly do a closing. So I'll say, of course, I appreciate your, opinion, and of course, your opinion is your own. What I would say to that is, in a world that is trying to find out where it can be, what society means for people. I believe that as long as people aren't harming anyone and within their rights and within respect to other people who have differing views, if they can express themselves and they can choose love and they can be beneficial to society, ultimately net positive. If these institutions cannot push their systems, for instance, I don't think it's good to overly complicate, children's ideas about gender. I do believe that there should be an open space. Schools should employ more therapists, okay? That like every school should definitely have therapists that, allow children to express themselves if they need help or guidance on certain ideas. But I feel like the LGBTQ plus community deserves their rights. They need to be able to express themselves. Of course, they should do it within the respect of society. Society should also respect them. And ultimately, hopefully, through understanding each other better and through there being checks and balances, we can be a better society for all. Okay. Anyway, let's move on to the second topic. And I'll just let you preface this because I believe this is a very personal one to you. So you can let us know a little bit about this.
Okay. So the second one is basically my journey from Islam to Christianity and my current relationship with the Muslim community. Yeah, very touchy. So I must say that basically my experience within the my move from Islam to Christianity has to, of course, do with my experience, right?
Hmm.
My experience in Islam within Muslim communities versus my experience in Christianity and Christian communities. My experience in the Muslim community and growing up as a Sunni Muslim was um, horrible. It
Mm.
was horrible. It was oppressive. It was, I must say, I want to be careful, but I want to be true, right? I want to be honest. It was what's the word, abusive, right? So I was a child that was very I used to question like theology from a very young age for whatever reason. I don't know why. I was like, like my children, they ask
Hmm.
questions about God and like, oh, why this and why that. So I was usually that kind of a child. Like I had 1,000 questions.
Yeah,
I
curious and
specifically
inquisitive.
remember, yeah, I specifically remember this one instance where I was at the mosque and, the mosques have this little teaching thing for like kids, like a little school, like a
Hmm.
little Bible school, Sunday school,
Sunday
but for
school, right?
Muslims in the week. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's not just on Sunday. So we used to go to these, and I used to have a question, and I specifically remember asking this imam a question, and he got really upset. Firstly, he like pulled my ears so hard. I I
Oh, shame.
remember I remember it that specific because there was like certain events that followed after that. One, he like pulled my ear very hard and like twisted it. Like when you pull it so hard, like you kind of like feel like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that,
The
that. Yeah.
cartilage
So
breaking
it
a
was
little bit.
that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When it's almost like the cartilage is breaking a little bit when,
Yes. So like he
yeah.
pulled it that hard, it was like numb, and I think I couldn't hear from the ear properly for like a couple of days.
Wow.
And plus, he reported me to my dad. And when I got home, yeah, my dad had to, he did a lot more than twist my ear. Let me just say that.
Right,
So it
right.
was like that kind of a context where I was constantly, and then growing up in an environment like that, it was just not very free. I think you can already imagine like asking question gets you into some serious, and my question wasn't an
Yeah, do you
offensive
remember the
question.
question? Do you remember the question just for
I
context here?
don't remember the question, bro. I
Okay,
really
okay.
don't remember.
No problem, no problem. Yeah.
All I remember was a question, and when I asked it, I got into deep trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked that, and already there was this like, oh, and as I was saying, it wasn't an offensive question. It was a question like, oh, I have this question. I want to accept what you've got to say. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to understand it and accept it. It's not like, oh, this doesn't make sense in Islam, so I've got a question for you. It wasn't like that.
Yeah, it was
So,
just
but it was just
benign.
like
It was
I'm a,
benign,
yeah,
right?
it
You
was
wanted to
like
know,
yes,
and then you asked a question.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a child. I'm a child.
Yeah.
I'm asking. My daughter asks me, oh, Dad, why do we breathe? Why do we need to breathe? Like my daughter actually asked me that, like, oh, why can't we do it another way? Why do we have to
Mm,
breathe? And so it was like that kind of a question, as you appropriately put it. It was a benign question. It wasn't like, oh, I've got problems with Islam. Let's debate it. I was a
mm-hmm.
child. Anyways, so already you can already see the context. And so the context was very like limiting, and you can't do this and you can't do that. You can't talk about this and you can't talk about that. And yet, then I saw my dad do all kinds of things, which was um, way outside the bounds of his religion that he tried to, enforce on
Rationalize.
me. And
Right, right.
so what happens is that my life became extremely miserable. I became very um, I got addicted to gym and steroids and stuff like that at a very young age. I think I was like, what, 17, 18 years old at sitting at 108 kilos of
Wow.
just mass. I was like,
Wow.
I, I was, because I had nothing else going on in my life, but I've always felt like um, I had an inquisitive side to me that was
Mm-hmm.
suppressed, and that caused misery. So I
Right.
needed to fill it up with something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a way to get out of it. And I just got into like a whole lot of like funny things and stuff. So one day, a woman comes along, a friend, and she starts, and now she becomes a Christian, and she's like full of life because she's a Christian, and she's like talking about Christ and
Mm-hmm.
Jesus this and Jesus that and Jesus this, like new converts, and they're like
Yeah, yeah, they're just
that
excited about
new
it.
excitement. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like just super excited about it and stuff. And she was just like going on about it all the time. And I think that I used to express like irritation to it, but in my heart, it was like almost like I envied that,
Mm-hmm.
because it was like, why can't I have that same kind of excitement? Um, so there were some other things that led to one day me just getting up and saying, "Oh, let me try it out." So
Mm-hmm.
if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, well, life is miserable. It will continue to be so. So nothing really will change. So it wasn't much of a risk. It was just like meh,
Yeah, yeah. You're just
trying.
gonna give it a
It's like
chance. Like, I
trying.
mean, I want to feel what
Yeah, give
she's
it a chance.
feeling. I'll give it a chance. If it doesn't work out, I move on, right? That's it.
Yes, exactly. So it was more like, you're at a restaurant, you've got to eat something. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't know all these fancy, have you ever been in a restaurant where you just open up the menu and you're like, I don't know any of this food. Like, what is this?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, pretty much like
So,
every French restaurant I've been to.
yes. So it was like that. And then it was like, okay, let me just try it out. And I've got to eat, right? I've got to
Yeah,
eat, and
yeah.
we'll see what happens from there. So it was more like that. And then I was given a small Gideon Bible, started reading the life of Jesus, and I just fell in love with this person, Jesus. I wouldn't say that I became a Christian at that stage, but I think that the journey begins there. And so, well, as time goes on, I start seeing a big difference between how Christian communities, on a general level, right?
Hmm.
Because our second topic is going to, our last and third topic, sorry, is going to talk about this. But on a
Hmm.
general level, there's like an openness, there's a community, there's like this acceptance, there's this and there's that and stuff, right? And all of a sudden, I'm being exposed to that because I'm like researching almost in my ignorance, like, right? Not like researching like books and reading, but like just trying to find out what the Christian life is about. And it just got me in and in and in. After that, I officially became a Christian. And to close off with, to say that my experience after that was horrific. I think all of Muslim community basically came after me, and we had to
Wow.
actually leave Swaziland, where you're
Wow.
from as well. We
Right.
had to leave Swaziland and take refuge in South Africa for a couple of years before
Wow.
we could actually go back. So my relationship with the Muslim community, the moment they find out that I am an ex-Muslim,
Mm.
it's very problematic.
It's extreme
People
judgment, right?
don't, yeah, so they don't like to hear that. Not only that, there was a couple of friends of mine in Swaziland. So I started coaching jujitsu as well at some point.
Hmm.
There'll be like a bunch of Muslim guys. They will find out about me. They want to come for training. They will find out about me and my story, and they will refuse to come.
Oh, wow.
Or
Wow.
yeah, like literally they would tell the other students that, oh dude, is this Shamoon, that guy, etc., etc., the guy who converted. Oh yeah, I can't, bro, I can't. So it was
Wow.
like that.
Wow. Yeah.
There was times where I got into motorbike riding, like enduro, right?
Hmm.
Enduro stuff. So we
Hmm.
were in a riding group and stuff. And once these guys wanted to ride, and they found out that I was a part of the group as well. And the guy who was inviting these Muslim guys, they were like, "Oh, you ride with Shamoon, this guy that who converted." Yeah, we can't. So it was like a constant. I had experiences such as that.
I mean,
Um,
that's terrible, man. I'll be honest with you. It's almost like you're seen
yeah,
as like less than human, subhuman almost, just because you converted
yeah.
from Islam to Christianity, which I believe is wrong. That's not
Yeah.
that's not
So
how you treat people.
to such an extent where there was a time when I actually went to my Pakistani embassy, because I'm actually originally from Pakistan. I'm not sure if you know that.
Yes, yes, I do remember you saying that you speak Urdu a little, you speak
Yes,
Urdu
I
very
do.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to the Pakistani embassy. Passport needed to be renewed. They bring this piece of paper for me to sign. It
Hmm.
has like Urdu words. I can speak Urdu, but I cannot read it.
Right.
Right. So I was like signing this document, and I signed it and I handed it in. And I was like, dude, what am I signing? And he was like, oh, that I am a Muslim, that I pledge allegiance to Muhammad, etc., etc. Because remember, the
Wow.
Pakistan is not just Pakistan. The
Yeah.
name of the country is not Pakistan. It's Islamic
Islamabad.
Republic of
Oh,
Pakistan.
right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the name of the country. So if you take a Pakistani passport, it wouldn't say Pakistan. It would say Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Right?
Hmm.
So immediately, what you've got is like there's this severe allegiance to the religion, right?
Hmm.
So even to get their paperwork and all of that, you've got to like pledge allegiance to Muhammad and stuff. So I said to the guy, "Oh, I've signed it, but I'm not a Muslim. I'm a Christian."
Wow.
And the guy who was accepting the document from me, he looked at me and he took me aside, me and my wife aside, and he was like, dude, do not repeat this again. Because there's something called blasphemy law in Pakistan. Blasphemy law is basically you're not allowed to be offensive towards the religion of Islam in any way. And converting out, committing apostasy from religion is actually against the
Oh,
religion, and it's a
wow.
crime against the country.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
what he said to me. And he's like, dude, um, if this news spread out and comes out, we will be obliged to arrest you, send you to Pakistan, and prosecute you.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is madness,
So
man.
yeah, so I can never go back to Pakistan, because if they ever find out that I am a Christian who
Mm.
left Islam for Christianity, I'll be prosecuted immediately.
Wow, that's terrible, man. That's terrible. I
Yeah,
can just already
you should check
see
out like
all
blasphemy
these things
law
that
and
you're
stuff.
going
It's
through.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can already just see from your story all these things that you're going through, which is like you wouldn't expect a normal human being like with their rights to have to be able to go through, you know what I mean? It's very like aversive. It's almost like if you decide to change away from the society and the system, you're ultimately shunned and you're cast out. And so
Yeah,
the thing is, I would say, of course, I know a lot of Muslims as well. I respect the religion, you know, and I try not to be offensive because I know how people find dearly their religion as well with Christianity. And I would just like to say it's almost if we go back to that moment where you asked that inquisitive question, right? And if you had an
yeah,
imam that was accepting and that was open and allowed you to explore your inquisitive nature and did answer your question, who knows how different your life would have been. So that's my first point into your story is that the people that we hold very highly in our society. So if you're a Muslim, it would be imams. If you're a Christian, it would be a pastor. You know, if you're a Jewish, it would be a rabbi. If you're just in a normal day society, you would look at elders, you would look at people that are trying to run governments, you know, you would look at them with respect and you would hope that they can, you know, provide guidance for you. That moment where you are just asking a question purely out of respect and you want an answer for it and you're not granted that answer because they deem it to be offensive, there's already a problem there. So I feel like that
yeah,
is the first step, is that the people that we look for guidance towards, for guidance, elders and such, they need to respect all inquisitive nature and understand that it's just a process of communication. Okay.
yeah.
And
So
then
yeah, that is something that is, and personally, I don't think that the Muslims are the only ones that are guilty of that. I think most formal religions are
mhm.
guilty of
No,
that. So
definitely,
that's like
definitely.
our third conversation, our third topic. Anyways, we'll get to that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's actually quite a good segue to that because I feel like, first of all, religions have this idea. They want to teach you the ultimate best life, you know, with regards to their text. Okay. The problem with that is that when you get so into the religion, you start to feel that anything that's not, you know, conforming to whatever is taught in the scriptures, there's an aversion to it, you know, and this is where the problem comes, where there's a us versus them. Okay. So it's like we are the religious us. We have a certain community, we have a certain way we do things. And then if you do not follow that, you're an outsider and you're almost not
Yeah,
taken into the same light, you know. And I wish that people, you know, this goes back to our first topic, even, you know, to highlight the LGBTQ plus community, is this us and them. And I feel like if we were to be more open to people, we weren't to judge them. And I think this is something that Christians try to do very well. They try to maintain an open community where you can come and you can discuss. But I've also noticed, because I've been to churches, my sister is very Christian. And sometimes I used to go to the churches and I would start to notice that they were starting to indoctrinate these mentalities of like, for instance, you know, against Muslims. They would be like, there is a problem with a radical Islam, and they would start to, you know, make Muslim people the bad people. And I started to find that that was the issue. If you're, first of all, a religion, I think it's best to focus on the practical teachings of your religion, you know, for peace, prosperity, abundant life, and love. And then all the other things that come from that, which are not necessarily relevant. So the things that cause you to feel very, you know, judgmental of people. This is where it needs to be toned down because ultimately, if you want to convert people, you gotta be a bit more open to what they have to say.
yeah. So let's just move into then our third
Yes.
topic. Anyways, you're now talking about it.
Hmm.
So our third topic is basically why are many leaving? I think most specifically Christianity, but
Hmm.
I think, speak from a Muslim's perspective as well because I've got that experience, and
Right.
the Christian perspective. I think I would. Um, you said something. that Christians are more open, right?
Hmm.
I would I would have to disagree with there a little bit.
Right.
I think that the Christian teachings, the Christians are taught to be open or encouraged to be open
Hmm.
to dealing with people as just normal human beings and loving all kinds of people.
Hmm.
But I don't think that that actually happens because you see, it's the same thing that going back to the same LGBTQ thing that
Right.
pride is not supposed to be that, but guess what? It actually just is. There's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is. The Christian churches as well. Why people are leaving is because I think that majority on a majority level pastors have just failed to sustain and to maintain a Christian atmosphere.
Hmm.
What you've got is what I call a toxic church culture,
Hmm.
where people are actually indoctrinated, what you were saying, to judge others.
Hmm.
It's like, I have this other saying also. It's like perfectionism. The irony of perfectionism is that it's so imperfect. People within the Christian churches require people to be perfect. Not like, oh, you have to be perfect. They don't verbalize it, but there's this thing of, if you we all understand that we're imperfect people and we're sinful, etc. But do one thing that's messed up. Just
Hmm.
one. You'll see an entire church turn on you and sit you down, make you feel horrible about it. There's no encouragement. There's no like, okay, it's a small thing, let it slide. Let's just chill with them. It's like it's hammer time, bro. Like they will come
Mm.
down on you hard. And then the other thing is also like what you just spoke about is education, right?
Hmm.
It's us and them. We feel within the religious community, right? We feel like anything that is outside of our theological, convictions, why pay attention to it?
Mm.
Science?
Mm.
Why should I study science? Science? Maths?
Hmm.
What are you talking about? So it becomes a thing where then you've got people, Christians then would say evolution, like pastors would get up and
Hmm.
say, evolution? How can evolutionists think that? It's such a silly idea to believe that we were one day monkeys and the next day we were humans, not realizing literally no evolutionary biologist ever said that, ever. Not realizing that. Is it
Mm.
no one ever claimed that we were monkeys one day and literally tomorrow we were like, poof, we were human beings. No one did it. Right? But the Christians and the religious, like imams and stuff, would stand in front of people and literally say stuff like that.
Mm.
It's dude, like what are you hoping is going to happen? Kids are going to school. People are getting educated. What do you expect? Like people will look at you and be like, what are you talking about? This man doesn't know what he's talking about. Let me just go sort my own self out, right? Let me figure it out on my own because this man clearly doesn't know. And plus, I've got all this judgment from him, and it's just
Exactly. This is
it's
such an
just a
important
weird thing.
point you bring up, Shamoon, which is like prefaces back to the earlier point that I was saying, which is like these people in your community, whether it be Christian, Muslim, or just normal society, the elders essentially, the people that you look for guidance, if they have an air of judgment to them when you come with a question or you come with a differing thought, if they're unable to talk with you, to talk to you about it and just kind of philosoph like go through your opinion from your point of view and see why you're thinking that way, then this is where you're going to lose someone. If you're unable to
Yeah.
accept, if you're unable to just accept their opinion and to have a conversation with them and just be, this is what it is, and if it's not this way, it's my way or the highway, get out. This is why people
Yeah.
are branching off, from religion. And like you said, it happens in the Christian community. Like if you do one thing bad, all of a sudden the hammer comes down and people aren't there in a supportive forgiveness way, like a way that's there to support you and to forgive you for your transgressions. then this is where the problem comes in. And ultimately, what is religion supposed to be about? It's supposed to be about forgiveness and acceptance.
Yeah.
And this
And
is why
and
people are
and and
leaving.
that's the thing. Pardon?
This is why people are leaving, I think, is because they're starting to feel like I'm not accepted by my community, so I'd rather just be on my own.
Yeah, but let me just say something about that.
Hmm.
Religious acceptance and societal acceptance. I'm going to create a distinction there.
Right.
Religiously, if I have let me even say this, an extreme scenario. If I've got a pedophile
Hmm.
religiously within my religious community, I cannot accept him. I cannot have him and assume that he is a part of my religious community because we don't practice that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But societally, I've got an obligation towards him because guess what? Irrespective of his issues, he is a human being just like me.
Hmm.
He is no different. The only difference between him and I is that his sin or his messed upness, right? For me,
Hmm.
from a religious perspective, from a Christian perspective, that is sin, right?
Hmm.
Comes out differently. That doesn't mean that I don't have issues. My issues are just different than him. We need
Hmm.
to recognize that little link that, oh, uh, there's this homosexual. Um, he just is struggling with whatever that he's struggling with. We can chill and have a conversation. I can be his friend. He
Right.
is a human being who
Right. Right. Right.
deserves love and respect. And that's
Hmm.
where the issue is. And I think that education, because education is not only, oh, let's talk about science. I think education has to do with how to think about people, how to think
Hmm.
about society. I think you did touch on it a little bit just now.
Definitely, definitely.
And that's where I think that, pardon?
No, yes, I was just agreeing with you. I was saying like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
totally, yeah, education is the cornerstone, I believe, for all of these
yeah, so
topics.
it's like people have just neglected that part of. I think the formal religions have just outright neglected that part. Like the those that you see online
Hmm.
that are very accepting and are very chilled and are very let's very inclusive in their societal relationships and stuff. That is not the norm.
Hmm.
The norm is it's them and it's us. We are better, they are horrible, right?
Right.
You guys
Right. Right.
are just this alien creatures that are just so ugly and we can't chill with you. We can't. Like
It's actually very
mm,
interesting that you bring that up, Shamun, because this is a very well-known psychological tactic used in cult making, where it's like, first of all, it's very much people that need community. You provide community for them. You give them everything they need. You show them that they can be open, that they can be involved. Of course, there are rules. They have to follow the rules. But after you indoctrinate them into your cult or your community, the next thing to do is to create a common enemy. Now, I'm not saying that religions are a cult. I'm just saying that all mass societies that have to govern people use these same tactics. And
yeah,
that's why these pastors and these imams, they will have to create an enemy just because there has to be someone that people can direct their anger to. There has to be an example of what not to do. And that's why I think it's such a powerful tool and people use it. And this is why it's causing such a polarization, if you will, because it's like we're creating enemies and people are starting to realize like that there are so many nuances. And I just want to touch on the extreme topic you said about pedophilia, right? And religion drawing the boundary and society drawing the boundary. I think pedophilia is extremely wrong because, first of all, children aren't cognitive, okay? They're not like, their minds haven't developed on the level of adults. So for you to sexualize a child, already you're gonna mess up their whole mental development. So
yeah,
if you're a pedophile and you suffer from that, you know what? You should be able to express yourself without harming children. So have like pictures drawn for you, whatever, like consume your material in your own home, do whatever you have to do to make sure that you don't go out and kill people, like we said earlier point. But essentially, you should not harm society. And that's what I think a lot of these religions are forgetting, is that people aren't at the extreme scale, right? They're not going out there and murdering people. I mean, some are, right? There's a subset of all people that are extremists,
I was about to say that there are
Yeah,
people
there are
doing
people like that, but generally, most people are just trying to find their path in this world, and they need guidance. They need somewhere where they can feel safe, where they feel like they can talk without being
Mm.
judged, where they can have
Yep,
open-ended conversations, where their ear isn't
yep.
twisted for asking a somewhat dicey question. They need to be encouraged to do these things, ultimately.
Yeah, and that's, I made a video, was it this past week when I
Hmm.
reached out to you
Hmm.
about today. I want to speak about like the Christians. I don't want to really focus on the Muslims and stuff because this is now my current experiences
Of
within the
course,
Christian community.
of course.
Is that I think that these problems are starting from our pastors, the
Hmm.
leaders of the religion, right? Within the communities and stuff. So whatever this pastor says or whatever, like what you said, like the tactics that are being used and stuff, it all comes from up there. We
Hmm.
are like people that are just like, oh, we're looking for this belonging, sense of belonging. We're looking, for
Hmm.
guidance, etc. and stuff. So we look at these men and like, oh, okay,
Yes.
you have the answers for us. And so as they provide these answers, they are leading many astray, bro. And so my video was basically on the problem of pastors today. I think
Hmm.
the selection of how we are selecting the selection process of pastors and stuff is very weak at this stage. It is
Wow.
horrible.
Wow,
Yeah,
this is an
dude, like
interesting topic we can actually
anyone,
explore in the future.
yeah,
You,
anyone can get up and become a freaking pastor. Anyone.
mm,
Like people are becoming pastors because they have nothing else to do. People are becoming pastors because well, it pays well, right? If people are becoming pastors because they just think that they can speak well, or
or they want
they're good
power,
public
right? Because
speakers,
pastors are some of the
or
most
they want,
powerful people in the world,
yes,
you know?
I know personally churches where pastors, so they don't, church doesn't only have a pastor, they've got like other leaders as well. So it
Hmm.
becomes like a political campaign on who can beat who, get elections and stuff like that, who can beat who and get on top higher and higher, because of course with a higher position in any organization comes money,
Of
comes
course.
respect, comes a
Yes.
certain status, etc., etc. So it becomes about that. What I think that the Christian community has forgotten is that a pastor should be a shepherd at heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where even that's a word that is used in the New Testament that Jesus himself uses, that I am the good shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
If and he gives an analogy and he says that if my work is such that I am so impulsive towards my sheep's need, that if one out of 100 goes missing, I should leave the 99 and pursue that one to bring that one back to safeguarding.
100%.
I kid you not, I have not seen that.
Yes,
Now,
I mean you're right. It's very much about maintaining the power, I think. It's a huge power struggle, and like people need to have these polarizing topics to try, rile people up. It's just like click media, right? Like clickbait. Like people need to have these polarizing topics to rile people up to know where they stand. And this is kind of the toxicity of modern day pastors and like the media itself.
sure, 100%. Yep,
And
100%. And
just to
so,
let you know, we are running out of time on this meeting. We got about 2 minutes left, 2 minutes, 20 seconds left. So I just wanted to know if you wanted to do any closing remarks. And then in the future, of course, we will find a better way to prolong our talk so that we're uninterrupted. You know what I mean?
okay, so basically at the end, I would just say is that this conversation was really helpful. I don't mean to be, I don't want to anyone to hear me say that that I hate or whatever the case is. I am somebody who is a conservative Christian man, right?
Hmm.
But I think that uh, that term and that phrase is severely misunderstood. What it means to be conservative Christian. What today's society, I think, when you say that, automatically it's, oh, there's another judgmental freak coming my way.
Hmm.
And I'm here to say that that is not the case at all, right? I'm here to say that I disagree, but I love you as a human being,
Right. I
right?
think
I
that's beautiful.
disagree,
I think that's
but I
beautiful.
love
Yeah. No, I think that's beautiful. I think that's a perfect way to just let people know that you're conservative, you're Christian, and you have your thoughts and your opinions, but ultimately you love people. And this is why you're willing to put yourself out there, to have these conversations with someone like me who's not Christian, to challenge yourself so that you can let people know that you're open and you want to have these conversations and you want to share, your experience. And my closing remarks, I just want to say that this was very helpful as well. I really did like this conversation. I want us to do more in the future so that we can explore more
you. 100%.
topics. And I think I also just want to let all people know that I myself am non-judgmental. I always want you to have an opinion. If you're bothered by anything, please come talk to me and we can discuss it. And we will look forward to speaking to more to you in the future. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you
Cool,
next
man.
time. See you, bud.
Take care, Jonathan. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.